So, any questions on the previous slide on this one? Any questions? Anybody?
No.
Okay, good. So, everything that we've been discussing was the relation between the ovary and what? And the pituitary gland, and how ovary is affected by FSH and LH. So, we were inside the ovary, but we completely didn't discuss what's happening meanwhile and at the uterus. Yani during the 28 days duration, the uterus also undergoes some changes, and that's what we're going to discuss today, the changes that take place inside the uterus. Before we discuss what happens inside the uterus, can you tell me what's the function of the uterus? What is the function of the uterus?
Delivers the sperm to the
sperms to the oviduct, good, but the uterus is the location where what?
The fetus.
Fetus develops. It's developing, and if fertilization takes place, the fetus will be developing inside the uterus. So development of the fetus takes place in the uterus. So if the egg gets fertilized, let's say here, and let's say that's the egg gets fertilized here, the fertilized egg will be moving all the way down through the oviduct, and it will land somewhere inside the uterus here. Okay, the egg is much smaller than this, but I'm magnifying it so that you understand. So fertilization, when it takes place, the fertilized egg has to roll all the way down through the oviduct, all the way down to the uterus, and it starts developing into fetus inside the uterus. So uterus is the location where embryos or fetuses develop. In order to do so, the uterus has to prepare. Today we're going to discuss how the uterus prepares for fertilization or possible pregnancy. It's like you are expecting a guest. If you're expecting a guest at home, what do you do usually? You start preparing. Clean, very good.
prepare food.
Exactly, prepare food. That's what the uterus do. The uterus starts preparing for possible pregnancy. Because we might have fertilization, and the fetus, there will be a coming fetus, meaning that as a uterus, I should be prepared. Here, I added one more graph. Remember, in the previous slide, we were discussing the pituitary gland hormones, the development of the follicles inside the ovary. Also, we're discussing the hormones in the ovary. Plus, I added one more graph, which is showing the uterine lining. What do I mean by uterine lining? Means the inner wall. The inner wall of the uterus. We are discussing the thickness of this wall. I'm gonna color it in blue. This wall, the inner wall. The inner wall of the uterus, that's what we call it the endometrium. The lines I'm drawing represent the endometrium. Endometrium is the inner wall of the uterus. So what do we call this wall?
Endometrium.
Endometrium is a tissue that's made up of epithelial tissue. It's an epithelial tissue, plus it contains blood capillaries and blood supplies. What do you think is the function of the endometrium? Is to supply
nutrients to the fetus.
Very good. So the fetus will be feeding or taking or collecting nutrients from the endometrium. This endometrium, in the next slide, you will show that it changes its thickness. It means it gets thicker as the female goes through the period. So here we're looking at the graph that shows the thickness of the uterine lining. Starting with day 0 of the cycle, can you describe the thickness of the uterine lining? Day 0. Is it
pretty thick?
It's thick.
Thick.
Yeah.
The uterine lining in day 0 is thick, but what's happening to this lining? To the
Declining.
It's declining, meaning that tissues and the blood capillaries inside the uterus, inside the endometrium, are breaking down. The breakage of the
Causes bleeding.
and the capillaries, very good, causes the bleeding.
and the menstruation cycle.
Very good. And that's what we call it menstruation or menses, or the period. Now we know it as period. So the period is actually because of the breakage of the uterine lining in the first 5 days. When the uterus or the endometrium is breaking down, bleeding happens because the uterus lining is made up of capillaries, blood capillaries, and blood capillaries, they contain blood. So when the shedding starts, bleeding happens, and blood starts leaving through the female reproductive system, through outside the body, through the vagina. Hala. My question is, boys, can you relate, or can you tell me what hormone is affecting the thickness of the uterine lining of the endometrium? Look at the other hormones and the rest of the graphs and try to figure out what hormone is affecting the thickness of the uterine lining.
FSH.
FSH. So if there's too much FSH, the thickness increases or decreases?
Decrease.
But that doesn't make sense. I mean, look, FSH in day 1 is null, and day 0 is null. But how come it's affecting the uterine lining? It's not FSH.
LH.
Is it LH? No, boys.
No.
It's estrogen. No.
It's one of the 4 hormones. It's not FSH nor LH. FSH and LH, they have functions on the ovary. They can affect only the ovary.
Proestrogen.
So it's either the estrogen or the progesterone. Which hormone do you think is affecting the thickness of the uterine lining?
Progesterone.
Progesterone, but as you can see, progesterone levels start increasing starting day 14 after corpus luteum is formed. So what's left is what? Estrogen. Guys, if you look at the incline, if you look at the estrogen levels, starting from day, let's say 5, what's happening to estrogen levels, as we said previously? Increasing. It's approximately the same line or inclined line as the what? As the uterus lining.
Yes.
The higher the concentrations of estrogen in the bloodstream will cause or will trigger the development of the uterine lining. The increase in thickness in the uterine lining means the tissues and the blood capillaries, they start building up all over again as the estrogen levels increase. So what's directly affecting the thickness of the uterine lining is actually the estrogen. The higher concentration of estrogen, the increasing concentration of estrogen triggers the further development of the uterine lining. And that's what's increasing the thickness of the uterine lining. So uterus lining will get thicker and thicker as estrogen levels increase in the bloodstream. Akid, later on, what supports the uterine lining?
Progesterone.
So both estrogen and progesterone, they maintain the thickness of the uterine lining. As you can see, uterine lining, it looks like finger-like projections. They look like fingers. And in between the fingers, the egg will be landing or will be planted like a seed. Seeds are planted in soil, but the fertilized egg, if the egg gets fertilized, will be planted where? In the uterus. This egg, after ovulation, if it gets fertilized by a sperm, so let's say that's the egg, and the egg gets fertilized by a sperm, a fertilized egg would be moving all the way down the oviduct or the fallopian tube, and it will be reaching the uterus, and it will be implanted in between
the uterus.
In between the walls of the uterus.
Endometrium.
Of the endometrium. So it's like the location where we catch the fertilized egg. If this wall, if the uterine lining is not there, let's assume that there's no uterine lining.
It will go.
Very good.
It will slip outside the.
It will continue its pathway all over down to the vagina and leave the body. So in order to catch the fertilized egg, the uterine lining must be prepared. Again, it has other functions. The uterus lining, it has other functions. But for now, the first function that should be done by uterine lining is to catch the fertilized egg. Otherwise, this fertilized egg will continue its pathway all the way down to the vagina and leave the body. Right. So estrogen and progesterone both keep the uterine lining or maintain the thickness of the uterine lining. What happens if fertilization doesn't take place? I'm speaking about hormones. What happens to the levels of hormones? If
Testosterone, estrogen,
like
drop.
estrogen and progesterone,
Yeah, the drop.
they start what?
The
Decreasing.
drop, so it expands in the egg.
Very good. As
Release.
they drop means that their concentration in the bloodstream starts dropping.
So the walls expand.
So as a result, the uterus will get a signal, and or the uterus will receive no more estrogen and progesterone, meaning that the walls and the capillaries and the epithelial tissue should start right now, or will start now, shedding and breaking down, announcing the beginning of a new what?
Period.
New period, new cycle. So if you're asked what causes the period, it's the drop in what hormones?
Estrogen.
And progesterone.
Estrogen and progesterone will cause the shedding of the uterine lining or the endometrium. أكيد. Decrease in estrogen and progesterone كمان will cause increase in what hormone?
FSH.
FSH. And the new cycle starts. Guys, did you understand what's happening?
Yes.
Yes.
What causes
Yes.
the bleeding
Yes.
and menstruation in the females?
Yes.
Females, they start doing this as they reach puberty. You all know that. And by the age of 9, 10, they start doing this. But when do they stop having a period?
50s and then 60s.
And they're
50.
starting from the age of 45,
سن العجز.
50, 55. يعني it's a range. It's not specific number. It's between the age of 45 and 55 for females.
The vagina becomes dry.
Vagina becomes dry. They stop menstruating because they can't go through cycles anymore.
No more
Why
eggs.
is that? Can you explain that? No more
They run out of eggs.
Very good.
More
No more
eggs.
eggs, no more follicles, in other words. لأنه the eggs are found inside follicles. If they don't have any more follicles, means they can't secrete any more what?
FSH.
لا.
Estrogen and progesterone.
Estrogen. Very good. If they don't have any more follicles, and imagine that there are no follicles here. Follicles, they are in charge of production of estrogen. If no follicles to produce estrogen, meaning that no corpus luteum will be formed, meaning that no more estrogen and progesterone will be produced, and as a result, no more what? Building of
Uterine lining.
As a result, if you don't have uterine lining, means that you won't even have what?
A baby, because the egg will just...
Baby, very good. And also you won't have menstruation. They will stop undergoing menstruation or bleeding. Did you get it? So they
Yes.
start running out of follicles. The less follicles they get as they age, because every period, as we said, they start losing some of their follicles. 300 to 400 follicles start maturing every period, and only one makes it to the end. So their storage will be finished by the age of 45, maybe 50, maybe it extends to 55 maximum. Yes, sir. Any questions? Whoever is asking a question, can you repeat it? Because I can't hear you well. Anybody? Guys, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
Right. So the events that take place inside the ovary, what do we call it? Ovarian cycle. but the cycle that takes place inside the uterus, what do we call it?
Menstruation cycle.
Cycle or menstruation cycle. Very good. So menstrual cycle is changes occur in the uterus, preparing it for pregnancy each month. It lasts about 28 days. It's influenced by the changing of the levels of estrogen and progesterone. So what controls the uterine lining are actually the two hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Events of the menstrual cycle, we already discussed it. Estrogen increases, the lining of the uterus becomes thicker and thicker. But we have a condition if pregnancy doesn't take place, أكيد estrogen and progesterone levels will start dropping. Type. I have a question, maybe I already discussed that before. What if fertilization takes place?
It stays the hormones.
Estrogen and progesterone, they remain high, meaning that they don't, there will be no drop in estrogen and progesterone in the bloodstream. As long as estrogen and progesterone will remain high, meaning that the uterine lining will be maintained and no period will be happening. And أكيد no FSH will be produced. Right. What's producing estrogen and progesterone if fertilization takes place? And how we said corpus luteum will degenerate after day 28. Whether there's
Breasts.
Placenta. Not the breast. لأنه الامبريو will be producing its own estrogen. لأنه placenta is
Mr.
Yes.
The breasts, they don't produce estrogen?
They do produce estrogen, but not enough to maintain the uterine lining or maintain pregnancy.
Okay.
Right. أكيد the next lesson نحن will be discussing the embryonic development and how embryo develops, and we'll speak about it in details. So that's the cycle, menstrual cycle. As you can see, in the first day of the cycle, bleeding is taking place. As you can see inside the uterus, bleeding is taking place, and the blood will be leaving, and the tissues, the broken tissues, will be leaving through vagina outside the body. And after this, they start building all over again. As you can see, the thickness inside the uterus is increasing again as a result of increase in estrogen. It gets thicker and thicker as we pass through day 14. As you can see, the thickness is much bigger right now. And if no fertilization takes place, as we already mentioned, bleeding starts over and the tissues break down again. أكيد, the duration of the period is 28 days, but as we already mentioned previously, the period might be affected by external factors, by factors like what?
Unhealthy eating.
Unhealthy food, and مثلا taking drugs, smoking, alcohol, depression, mental health, physical health, psychological health. كلهم factors. يعني if she is stressed, for example, يعني if she has exams, let's say, the period might extend to 40 days or 50 days, يعني instead of 28 days. And it might get shorter than 28 days, but usually it extends, it becomes longer. Some women, they might miss their period for 2 months or 3 months.
They think they're pregnant.
Exactly, and they would think that they are pregnant. It would be fake pregnancy. Yes, it would be fake pregnancy.
Mr. Genetic disease affect the period?
Yes, genetically, if there are genetic problems, yes, كمان it would affect the period. Again, نحن we discussed healthy females, the normal situations. Do we have exceptions? Do we have abnormalities? Yes. You're not discussing the abnormalities now and just discussing the healthy cases. Once they reach the age of 45, they stop menstruating. What do we call this age when they stop menstruating?
Menopause. ولا سن العجز.
سن العجز أو سن اليأس. sorry. بالعربي سن اليأس.
صح yes.
Okay. Some females, they in order to overcome the decrease in estrogen, and we said no more follicles, no more estrogen.
They take hormones.
They start taking estrogen pills. لأنه they got used, their body gets used to estrogen, the presence of estrogen. if they don't produce any more estrogen, they would feel less feminine,
Depressed.
So they start taking estrogen levels, and they start growing some male features like growing facial hair, thicker voices. So in order to overcome these side effects of decrease in estrogen, they start taking pills of estrogen. So in addition, some women, they may get something that we call hot flashes, and their body temperature start rising. And as we said, they have to take pills of estrogen in order to overcome this. As an exercise, can you put these steps in order? And by this, now we are done with this chapter, with this section.
Ooh.
Can anybody, can you read the steps and try to, we still have 3 minutes left. I hope we can finish this by time. So we have here the steps of follicular phase and in the ovarian cycle. I need you to put them in order.
The second one is the first
the
one.
second one, the anterior pituitary releases.
Very good. So that's
Yeah,
number
that's the first.
The fourth one is the second one. I'm using my phone. I can't do it.
So that's
So
one. Good. Tell me, I will help you. Number one
the
is
fourth one is the second one.
It's follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. Fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Surge and LH.
Directly surge and LH. Low. FSH
No.
triggers what?
The first one, as the follicle approaches maturity, it begins to
Okay,
secrete
so
large amounts of estrogen.
FSH will causing the increase in estrogen. So that's number 2.
2.
ليه؟ لأنه الfollicle stimulating hormone will be causing the development of, or the, yes,
Follicle.
maturity of the follicles. Right.
Third
After
one,
follicles
the
mature,
third.
very good. As the follicle,
Ovulation.
the ovary, ovulation takes place. So, but before this, before ovulation, in order to trigger ovulation, another hormone should be secreted.
Estrogen.
And as the
Yes.
estrogen levels increase, as the estrogen levels increase,
The surge in LH causes
very good.
follicle to complete.
So as the estrogen increases, the pituitary gland responds to high levels of estrogen.
Mister, I was just talking
Start
to
releasing
Osama.
Osama. Sorry.
Yeah, he was in the waiting room.
Well, you need to tell me, guys. I don't trust anyone to. Okay.
Mr. 1 minute left, anyways. So.
Okay. You know what? Think about that. We'll discuss in the next period. Enjoy your weekend, ya Halloween. I don't know how much you enjoy your weekend. أصلاً.
You too, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yalla, bye, Mr.
All right. Take care. Salam.
Bye bye.
In order to overcome this problem, what do they do? In order not to
Take
have
pills.
They take estrogen.
Okay, right. Who can label the following diagram?
A is ovary.
B is the
So we
fallopian tube.
type it by us.
What again?
Do we type it
Uh,
in your screen?
Guys, whoever is drawing this is not funny. Yani. So A is what? I'll type it, boys.
Ovaries.
Ovaries.
Ovary.
A is ovaries. Okay. B, I will pick names. Ahmad Durad.
Fallopian tube.
B is fallopian tube. Right. What about C? 1 second. Ahmad Saleh.
Uterus.
Uterus. طيب, what about D, Nirandra?
Bladder.
D is bladder. Okay, bravo. What about E? E, Abdulaziz. Azuz, are you there? Azuz? Guys, if
Yes, yes, Mister. I'm here. I'm here.
what's E then? استغفر الله العظيم كل ده العظيم.
طيب اقسم بالله عيب يعني مش كل حصه.
cervix.
Cervix, yes. حكمت I will have to kick you out unfortunately. لأنه أنت واحد حيوان بلا تربة. أنت ولا مين مع whoever is using your name. طيب. Whoever is doing this is حيوان يعني صراحة. I don't want to waste time on you guys. He is what again? Sorry, Azuz, tell me.
cervix.
Cervix, very good. And F. F is what?
Me.
لا, someone else. Ahmad Yusuf, are you there? F. Ahmad Yusuf, you have an answer? طب Majid, do you have an answer?
No. No.
No. طيب what about Mustafa?
لا في يوم
مستر الشاشة مو قاعد تطلع عندي.
Go outside, leave, and then I will let you in.
Okay.
طيب
It's a vagina.
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 Yeah, look. Right below the uterus, bro. Look.
So
You haven't seen
the
one
label?
before?
So did you post the slides on the school website?
Yes, they're there. طيب, using the labeling, can you answer the following matching or MCQs?
طب مو كثير واضح مو كثير واضح يعني.
Refer to the illustration. Okay, I will zoom out.
ايوه هيك احسن صار. مستر السؤال الاول اجاوبه. Can I answer?
Yes, sir.
Question 1 is A, which is ovary.
Question A is ovary. Okay, very good. Egg is produced in the ovary A. Very good. 2. Zambo, are you there? Refer to the illustration above. Question 2. The structure C is already discussed it. Zambo, are you there? Abdullah Sultan. Guys, I don't know why you attend if you're not listening or you don't have a microphone. How are you going to participate?
Mr. I answer?
Yes, sir.
Uterus.
Uterus, very good. 3, who can answer 3?
The fallopian tube, B.
Which is B, very good. Type 4, female gamete is called?
D, follicle.
Follicle, very good.
Sir, can you check the chat?
Female gamete is
Ovum.
ovum. Ovum, which is, yes, sure. User Hamad.
Mr. Female gamete is follicle or ovum?
Yeah, I kicked Hamada لأنه he's using supervisor's name, so I kicked him outside.
Mr. Female gamete is ovum or follicle?
Sure, thank you.
Ovum.
Whoever is telling me,
Ovum.
keep an eye on the speaker. Whoever is making the noise, just let me know. You can privately text me, and I'm keeping an eye on the speakers anyways. But,
Mr. Azuz is waiting in the waiting room.
yes. 5, question 5. Anyone? Ovary is where egg production. So
ST sperm production.
sperm production. C, very good. Number 6. Okay, describe which of these two cells, the ways that these two cells are different. And in other words, the differences between sperm and egg. Who can?
Sperm cells have
You're using
flagella, egg
can you
cells don't.
type the answer. If you're using desktop, can you type the answer? Who can type the answer?
Mr. You
Yes,
disabled
I'll
annotations.
do it.
Okay, can you do Naradra?
Wait, I can't. It's not there. The option is not there.
Not in the
Mr.
option.
You disabled them.
Sorry. Okay, Michael. Go ahead, try now.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. The size of the egg and the tail.
Yes.
There's only one difference that I wrote.
Egg cells are larger. Sperm cells, they have flagella, egg cells don't. Very good. Egg is larger because it has more what? Outside.
More.
Okay, because it has more cytoplasm.
Cytoplasm.
Because
Cytoplasm.
it has more cytoplasm.
It has more nutrients.
More nutrients since it contains more cytoplasm. Very good, Ahmed Al-Khaliq. Size, tail, function, yes. Which one is motile or can move?
Sperm cells.
Sperm.
Cells can move. Those sperm cells are motile. Motile means that they can move. Okay, one is produced inside ovaries. Sperm produced in ovaries.
What?
Okay.
No, I'm saying testes.
Ovaries. In testes. In testes. Spinamal eggs are produced in ovaries.
Ovaries.
Okay. Which one carries enzymes?
The sperm cells.
Sperm.
Sperms.
Break the cell membrane.
Break the cell
Sperms have
membrane.
in between brackets, what do we call these enzymes? Do you remember them?
Acrosome.
Guys, you have to start studying. At any time, I would ask you to make a quiz.
Oh, yeah, acrosome. Yes, yes.
Okay. Right. Of course, of course. Right. Give two features that help the ovum move through the fallopian tube. What allows the
cilia
contractions? Okay.
in the fallopian tube.
Contractions of what? Or she of the smooth muscles that line the what?
Fallopian tube.
Fallopian tube.
Okay.
And the cilia.
Another feature, as we one of you mentioned it. What is it?
And the cilia. The projections.
Wall of the fallopian tube.
Yes.
Covered by cilia.
Tube is covered by cilia that allow egg movement. Right. You got the answers? Guys,
Yes.
again, you have the worksheet on your website, so just print them out. Right. This is, let's say, a quiz, but I'm gonna use it as a worksheet. We can define ovulation. You know what?
The release of the
release from the
egg.
ovaries to the fallopian tube.
One second. So ovulation is the I want you separately, each one of you, I'll call you names depending on the title and type the answer on the screen.
Okay.
Starting with
أنا واحد بعمل تايب أنا عم بستعمل تليفوني.
ovulation.
أنا بعد تليفون
Can you write it?
يعني
بالشات.
أكتبها على الشات أستاذ.
اكتبها على الشات. اوكي. Ovulation عبد العزيز. احمد دريد.
لا أنا مو أول واحد. طلعنا
Ovarian cycle. احمد دريد ovarian cycle. ليش تصاي menstrual cycle. فريد menopause. عبد
مين أستاذ؟
الرحمن.
مين أستاذ؟
فريد انت define menopause. عبد الرحمن gestation.
Yes, I do fetus.
Okay. Ignore gestation. Fetus.
Mister, I write it on the chat, okay?
Okay, type it on the chat.
أنا ovulation صح؟
Yes. The rest will answer them later لأنه we still didn't discuss it. Are you done? Cleavages. Are you serious?
Nice. That's
Still we
the
discuss cleavage.
reproduction of the embryo.
Okay, so life beside the cycle that's from day 1 to of the period till the first day of second period. Usually cycle is 28 days, depending on the female. Life, what are you defining? I forgot. The ovarian cycle.
Ovarian cycle.
So, but who can give better definition for ovarian cycle? Who can give better definition? Ovulation refers to the ovulation is the release of egg during menstrual cycle. Good, Abdulaziz. Who can give better definition for ovarian cycle?
Sir, أنا كنت أعمل series of events by which the ovaries prepare and release on ovum. هاي صح ولا
لا اكتبها.
لا مو لازم أكتبها. لا أنا مو اسمي بس أنا بعطي من عندي يعني.
Type ovarian cycle, how can you define it, guys, for the last time? Is the series of events that take place inside what?
The ovary through which the follicle grows and matures.
Over a duration of how many days?
14 days.
Ovarian cycle.
28.
28 days. So when you say ovarian cycle is the sequence of events. So ovarian cycle is the cycle of events that take place in the ovaries over 28 days. Ovulation is the process. Very good. I answered ovulation. Ovulation is the process that is the release of egg from the ovary. Very good. Very good, yeah, Abdulaziz. So is the process by which the egg is released from the ovary. Menstrual cycle, the cycle of events that take place where? Place inside.
أحمد ليث نحن مرتاحين إنه ما عندك مايك تكتب على الشات.
Inside, sorry, the uterine lining. Menopause is the age at which
Mr. Isn't the menstrual cycle اللي هي cycle between each period?
لا menstrual cycle
Mr.
that take place in the lining of the uterus, which is the endometrium, the thickening and the narrowing of the lining. Remember?
Yes, yeah, in case the egg will be fertilized.
Like, can't we just say that
Preparation.
it's just the cycle between each period, which is 28 days?
لا sir, أنت confused between ovulation and menstruation. Menstrual cycle here events that take place in the ovaries wall, in the uterus wall. It's a cycle of 28 days. They thicken, the wall keeps thickening until day 28, then it breaks down at day 28 if there is no fertilization. You're getting confused with
So basically, it's just the thickening of the walls inside the uterus.
then the breakage of the wall, yes. This happens over 28 days. If there's no pregnancy, the wall breaks down and starts building up again. After 28 days, the wall breaks down and it starts building up again. It's a cycle of 28 days. That's what we call menstrual cycle. The ovarian cycle in the 28 days, the events that take place inside the ovary. Follicles grow, then ovulation takes place, then corpus luteum is formed. These are 28 days events.
Okay.
Gestation here, who has a definition of gestation? We didn't discuss it, but it's the alternative term of what?
Pregnancy.
Pregnancy, very good. Later we'll discuss the pregnancy, which will be our next lesson, next period, inshallah. We'll be speaking about pregnancy and development. So pregnancy is the duration of embryonic
development
and fetal, means fetus, yani development, very good. And that would be the title, will be a title for our next lesson. Kaman, and last other definitions, Kaman will be discussing them in the next lesson. I believe that's more than enough for today. Guys, before I finish this meeting, I need you all to be prepared for a quiz